This is Suzanne Wagner of the C.G. Jung Institute of Los Angeles. In the next hour, you will view a conversation I held with Dr. Rudi Niehus in his home just outside of Zurich. Rudi Niehus is the son of Walter Niehus, an architect, and Marianne Niehus-Jung, a daughter of C.G. Jung. Rudi Niehus attended the universities of Zurich and Basle, where he received a medical degree. He practices psychiatry and psychotherapy in the Jungian mode. In this conversation, he responded graciously to my questions about his recollections of family life and memories of his grandfather, C.G., and his grandmother, Emma. He tells us how he came to follow in the footsteps of his grandfather in choosing a career in the fields of psychiatry and analytical psychology. His impressions of his grandfather helped to round out a fuller, more personal portrait of the individual C.G. Jung. Dr. Rudolf Niehus, it's good to meet with you today, and very nice of you to have us in your home. I would like to hear something of your memories of your grandfather, C.G. Jung. So perhaps you could just start off by telling a little bit about your own early life, where you were born, and then how you came to know your grandfather as a young boy.
I'm born in Zurich, and then with 5 years we moved to Kusnacht, just besides the house of my grandfather. In between is the beach, and so I've been there quite a lot of time to play there, and when I was in 52 we moved again in our house, and then in between we had half a year where we had no place to stay because the house we lived in was hired. We had to go out, and then we lived it's half a year we lived with my grandfather. So I saw him every day in Kusnacht, and then when in the summer we went down there to have our bath, to go into the lake.
So you had a lot of contact with him as a boy, growing up.
Yeah, a lot of contact.
Did you like him?
Yeah, I think, it's difficult to say. Yes, I think so too. That's normal. But we have had respect. Is that
respect?
Respect. Yeah. He was a great old man. And we had to, between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock, it was not allowed to make any noise when we were swimming, because he had his rest, and we had to be quiet. Otherwise,
so things centered around him.
Yeah,
quite a bit.
But it's normal because it was his house. We were there, but we could do quite a lot of things. We played quite a lot with there, swimming, riding on our velos through these little Wege, what's it? He has in his garden his
little pathways.
His pathways, yeah, exactly. And then no, we could do quite a lot of things which perhaps we shouldn't do. And he didn't know it, so we could do it. And Mr. Müller, the gardener, had to do that in order again afterwards.
When did you realize that he was a great man? A famous man?
I think it was a point we've been with our friends we've been there after school, after gym. It's gymnasium.
Mm-hmm.
We went there quite often. After 5 o'clock on the afternoons, we were free. And a friend of mine, he told us about his grandmother, that he was joking about her. She told him to be, when we had a dance or something like that, when we went out in the evening, then he was told to be back at 9 o'clock or at 10 o'clock, but he had to be back at a certain time. And then he told us, and we knew that he was at home at 5 o'clock in the morning. And next morning he was telling her, yes, I've been there, and it's everything okay, and you can sleep. And then I realized how he was joking with her, and what stories he could tell her. And then I realized that it was not possible to do that with our grandfather. That he, when someone was joking, it was he was joking with us. He told us stories we could believe or not, and that it was not our side to make any jokes.
But you couldn't joke back with him.
Oh yes, we could. Yeah,
you could. Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the point. I realized he was the chief. He was the chief of our family. He said what was to be said.
Mm-hmm.
And another point is when someone in the family got a new car, then it was nearly necessary to show him that car. That in the first or second day he wanted to have a look at that new car, and he wanted to have a drive with it. That he could say yes, it's good or not. But he was interested in everything, not only in his works, but in everything also personally. When I knew once I had what do you call it, pains in my stomach ache.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were in Bollingen, and then I told him of that, and then he said yes, it can be that and that and that, and then I thought he must be psychiatrist, and he knows what an ordinary physician knows also, and so he must be quite broad, is it?
Broad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In his knowledge, and I think that was these points gave us the view that he had, that he didn't was small in his knowledge, that he was broad. He knew about everything,
Mm-hmm.
and if something, he was interested in everything. We could, if we had a problem or if we had something to tell him, when we were not afraid to tell him, then he was listening.
Well, what would you have been afraid to tell him?
Oh, because he was respectful. And I think that could be the point, because he was extremely dominant. My parents were dominant, and then it's difficult for a child to become itself, to stay on its legs, to say something, to tell something, and we didn't know if it's accepted or not, and I think that's difficult to get someone when the parents are dominant.
This is, you think, in the case of your family, he was more dominant than the typical Swiss grandfather because of his genius, perhaps?
I would say so, yeah. Because he was chief. He was not
chief.
only in his, because he was not only respectful, but he knew.
He knew so much.
He knew so much. We couldn't tell him something, and think, oh, because we knew that when we are going to tell him something that he will understand it, and we can't tell him something which isn't true.
Mm-hmm.
So that he will say yes, no, my dear, it's not true. We couldn't. And I think that in this case it was difficult for us to tell something, because then we thought, is it interesting for him when we tell something?
Mm-hmm.
And we had to find our path.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that with a colleague in our, when I studied in Basle, that he was with 24, he has been in Yemen in the war as a studying as a student to help there. I think he has been in Egypt. And then I discussed with my cousin. He studied also in Basel with me, and I discussed with him. He told me, now this young man, this colleague, he's doing that, he's fighting, he becomes someone, he goes there and he is doing that, and we too, we stay at home and we wait for the money coming from home to pay our studies, and we do nothing. We are here in that we don't do anything with the heroic. Is that
heroic?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I told him, now you must think, we have to fight with our parents, with our dominant parents. We have to come out. That's our fight, and afterwards perhaps. This colleague has no father. He has a mother, and I think his mother is not. She was working. He had no great problems at home, and he hadn't had this fight. We have to
this
do this
friction.
Yeah, this friction to stand himself, to say no. We are we, and not our father or our mother. Who told us to be so and to do so. And I remember, until I've been 20, my mother has organized everything for me. To go to the French part of Switzerland to learn French, she organized it for me. And I know other friends, they did it themselves. And so I had my fight, or our fight, to do inside, in the family first, and then to go outside.
Do you think your grandfather knew that he was such a dominant figure?
Oh, yeah.
Did he enjoy that? I mean, his dominance?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say so. No, he knew that. And he knew who he was.
He knew who he was. You think that he realized how great he was?
Oh, yeah. No, I think it, because he has, but it was right, so, I'd say. On the other side, he had his enemies, and I think that's difficult to fight with his enemies, and that's the story I told you with when he died. We get these mountains of letters, and one I remember, they told us, now it's the time for the family to say goodbye to everything he had written, he had done, to his work, because that's we should put that to hell. That's no good. That's when we believe in that, when we work with that, that would be not good for our family.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it is. But that's people. And that's in a policy it's the same now, you see,
Yes.
fighting one to each other.
Uh-huh.
Opinion to opinion, or against opinion. They fight for it.
Well, in the family, in the Jung family, it's been my impression from the biographies and from stories that circulate about Jung that not many of his family members really took his work very seriously anyway.
Yeah.
What is your own impression of that?
That's true, but I think it's the difficulty has Goethe's son took the ideas from his father.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's the one that was what my mother told me or told us, that a genius will take his force or his energy
Mm-hmm.
from the generation before and the generation which comes. And I think that could be true.
Mm-hmm.
When you look the father of my grandfather and then the family, it's a bit like that.
Mm-hmm.
Without, and I think that's normal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other point may be the dominance of a man that is what do you call it when you can't move?
Paralyzed.
Is paralyzing
Yes.
the children.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the daughters, it's easier for a daughter with a dominant father than for a son.
Yes.
Without being personally now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean it in general.
In general, yes. What about his Bollingen retreat? Did you spend any time there as a boy?
Yeah, I've been there 2 or 3 times with my friend, a fortnight, and I enjoyed it very much. And then I saw that he was interesting. He knew us. It was not so that he was a great man abroad.
Mm-hmm.
He was our grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
He knew us and he was interesting. He listened when we told him something.
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered later I had some difficulties to find my profession. I didn't know if I would become architect or to go in direction medicine. And when I found it with a friend of my grandfather in analyzing my dreams,
Mm-hmm.
that it must be in the direction of my grandfather's, then I remembered that he was telling me, I think I was 18, I should become a doctor. But that's so difficult, and that's the dominance I told you before, that when someone says, now you must, that would be the profession for you. I took it and I said, no, I do want to become myself, the individuation, and not what he has said.
Not what you think about me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
But then you must have discovered that it really did belong to you because you've become a physician.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when did you decide it did belong to you?
After it was just I finished my military service in '61, and about 2 days later he died, and then I had my Abitur, what do you call my exams from the gymnasium,
Uh-huh.
and then I didn't know what to do. As my father, architect or physician, and then first I went to my father in his office to have a look at it, to work there, and they wanted to have me there, and they said, "Oh, I would become an architect, and it would be better." And I wasn't quite satisfied with that. I thought when I take this, I lose this, and I don't see so many things I could see here. And when I take this, I lose that. And so I couldn't decide these two valleys to take. And then I've been to what do you call it? Someone who likes, should say you what you will become. And he told me to become a lawyer. And that's what I didn't want, and to go to a bank first. And but I knew I didn't want to do that. And then I didn't know, I was lost. And then a friend, Professor Böhler, a friend of my grandfather, told me, he was with us, and then he told me that he had talked with a boy, or with a young man, of a friend of him, and then they found his profession. And if I would be interested to come to him, and then I came to him, and then I had, in this time, I had 4 dreams, which showed me that I must take, that I find first a gold, and the last dream was that I found a fish, the symbol of Jesus and of the self, that I find that in Bollingen, connected with my grandfather, and connected with the whole thing of that, so that I must go in the direction of medicine. And then I went in his direction and be satisfied. And I'm satisfied.
Do you practice medicine or psychiatry?
No, medicine.
Medicine.
But a bit psychiatry.
So.
Psychology.
I see.
Psychotherapy.
Psychotherapy.
Yeah.
I see.
I like it, and I think it's necessary to do that.
Yes. Well, that's a very interesting story about how you found your way. Were dreams a part of family life? I mean, did people kind of naturally pay attention to dreams?
Oh yes. You see, when you are living as son or as daughter from in a family of a farmer, then you get to know how you must take the milk from a cow. And so when you are, I took it with me, because that was the area, the air around us. It was the whole. And I didn't realize that. I realized that when I talked to some people and discussed with them, and then some said, "Yeah, you got your psychology feeling. How do you call that? A feeling of that." And then I realized that it must be like that. I didn't realize it before.
You didn't realize you had this natural capacity. This
I don't know if it's natural. Perhaps it's educated.
Educated in the family atmosphere. Well, you must have seen aspects of your grandfather's personality that others didn't get a chance to see. I mean, how he might have been different in, for example, in his life in Kusnacht than he was in his life in Bollingen. Can you give us any stories
Gentleman in
about that?
Kusnacht and life of a primitive, not negative, life of a primitive in Bollingen. I think that was his intention to do so. In Kusnacht he was the gentleman. He was the working doctor. He had his patients. He had his work, his writing, his books, and so on. And in Bollingen he lived, I'd say. And he had his meditating hours when he was playing, now in parenthèse, when he was sitting outside with his little water falls and so on. I don't know if you know these the pictures when he's sitting there. He had his little what do you call that when the water is going through the
canals?
Where he was Hans Kuhn helped him first, and then he was with a little instrument he was taking out the stones and thinking, meditating. And then sometimes writing. And perhaps at one point when I said before his primitive, to be a primitive, to have no electric light, to have no floating water, to have no shower, to go to wash in the sea, and all that, and no electric, no shaving. That also his manners, he behaved himself primitive.
He did.
And yeah, one story, I don't know if I should tell it, is when we've been there, he ate not like a gentleman, I could say. And but we took it as it was, and he was the great old man, and he
How do you mean not like a gentleman?
he ate primitive.
You mean with
You
his
heard
hands?
him.
Oh, you heard him. Yeah.
And then when he was finished and he had something on his plate, then dear Hans Kuhn had to finish it. He took his plate, he took it to Hans Kuhn and put it on his plate, and Hans Kuhn ate it. And he was glad to do so. And I think you can think it was, what do you call that, überheblich, he thought too high.
Arrogant?
Arrogant. But I wouldn't say, I think he, perhaps a bit, but I think he thought he must have been not too, a bit geizig, spent the money not too easily. What do you call it?
Tight?
Tight, yes, perhaps. And then he thought it would be, it's a pity to leave that like that.
I see. Frugal with food.
Yeah,
I
and then
mean,
he gave it to Hans Kuhn.
I see.
And then the point, I was afraid, I can remember, is the primitive man that he was, sometimes when he was smoking, and so get some phlegm, yeah, and then we didn't like that, and I didn't agree with that. He was sometimes, when we were eating outside, he was spitting in a coin. And then I've been there with my friend a fortnight, and then the girlfriend of my friend was coming, and I was afraid, now what will happen? Where shall I go when that happens? And then she was coming, and I was a bit, I thought, now then, let it be. And but I was astonished. He was a gentleman. He sat after our girlfriend sat down, and she was about 17, 18, and he gave her, when he took, not after he has taken the food, he gave her before, and then he took, and then Miss Bailey and the others, and he was a perfect gentleman, and I was glad. And
relieved.
Relieved, yeah.
Can you give me some impressions of your grandmother, Emma Jung?
From Bollingen, I've seen her, I think, twice in Bollingen. She didn't like Bollingen.
She didn't like such a primitive life, huh?
No, I don't know if it was. I don't know if it was the primitive life or if it was the dizziness, cold, not so excellent for rheumatic disease. It's possible that she didn't like it because of that. And she was. My impression of her is she was a lady. From foot to the
head
point
to toe
of hair, a lady, and her hair, her cloth, everything okay. And I told that once to my mother. I was that she's a lady, and no, what I call no stubble on her hair, everything okay. And then my mother laughed and said, yes, now. It's like that.
Meaning
So
before, maybe.
Before she was a wife working in her household.
Uh-huh.
And normally they can't be like a lady over the time.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's, and my impression, she was shy, very shy.
Mm.
And she was, I had no near contact to her, not a friendly, a cordial, no friendly, yes, but no a cordial contact. And she was a bit, she was shy, and she didn't fight for her rights. She was no fighting woman, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. Can you give me some impressions of Toni Wolff and how you got to know her, or did you get to know her?
Yes, we knew her, we saw her car standing outside the Seestrasse, I think more often than necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't have any explanation why it was so often there. And I don't know if she knew us by name. I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
I think she knew that we were children or grandchildren from our grandfather, but not more. She didn't know us by name, and I had no feeling for her, and I think perhaps it was a cold connection, not connection.
Distance?
Yeah, it was a distance between her and we children.
Mm-hmm.
And but I can't say much about her. Perhaps my feeling is that she shouldn't be there so often. But it's difficult to say anything about it.
Did you pick up any discomfort or tension on the part of your grandmother, or between your grandmother and grandfather about her?
That's true. That's normal.
Uh-huh.
2 wives and 1 man.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
That's my feeling. But I'd say when you have to put them in positions that the queen is my grandmother.
Uh-huh. She
is the first.
Uh-huh.
And then comes Toni Wolff.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, I can't say it in what kind of relationship they had.
Mm-hmm. And you never spent time with the 2 of them together, for example?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say. I know Toni Wolff was perhaps, she was more often in Bollingen than my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
But to visit my grandfather. And
did your family members talk about it at all? Was it a topic of conversation?
yes, we did once, and I don't know if it was, I think it was after she died, we talked about her, and then my mother said that Toni Wolff was the anima of my grandfather, and that as an explanation why that relationship was so, took so long.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know much about that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't talk how intensive that was.
Mm-hmm. Well, how do you feel about the whole thing yourself? Do you feel that that is perhaps a rationalization, that anima business?
That's an excuse.
Uh-huh.
My opinion is he should, as CG, he should know earlier that that was his anima, and so come to a stop. Because I think it's in when you go to Africa, you have some 2 or 3 wives, but I think in Europe you can discuss. But I say it's an excuse to have 2 wives such a long time, and I don't agree with that. But I can't say more about that because perhaps they didn't discuss with us in the time that relationship was going on, and I was too young.
It brings up something to my mind that I hadn't thought about asking, but I do now. What was it like in the years of your growing up? For example, your grandfather had really broken away from the church per se. I mean, he didn't identify with the church. He developed his own inner life, his own relationship to what he calls the self, to the God image within. So what about things like relating to sexuality? I mean, you're from a Swiss family, and Switzerland is very traditional. How in a family like yours did parents talk to children, or grandparents? I mean, did you sit down and have talks with your father or your grandfather, or as a boy? Did they?
About sexuality?
Yeah. I mean, was there any initiation attempted? I don't mean, organized, but was there any attempt to relate to you consciously about it?
You see, that is, I think, none of the children of my grandfather had heard anything about sexuality before they went to marry, before they married. And so it was with us. But a real Aufklärung, what do you call it?
Explanation?
Explanation we didn't get. That's funny for that family, but I think it's necessary to say.
Yeah. It is funny in a way, isn't it, that all this uncovery in Freud's work and Jung's work of the repression, and yet still a kind of touchiness about it that we all still have. Yeah.
No, now it's open.
Much more open.
Yeah. It's funny. I see that as a physician now. I've got the children from school. I examine them, and then I see and I ask to them about that. I talk to them about that every year, and then I see some know nearly everything they must know, and there are some which knows nothing, nearly nothing, and the parents don't want that they know anything, and that I think that's funny, and I don't know if it's especially Swiss
No,
character or if it's, but it's better now than some years ago, in our generation, and I know that from my friends. They didn't. My cousin and my friend, my friend, he's an American, he has got an American mother, and they had 2 books he could read. And when he had got a question, then he could go and got an answer. And my cousin, I think he had, but too late, a talk with his mother, but he knew everything from his friends, from his school.
Well, in contact with your grandfather, did he ever make dirty jokes, or did he show you anything about his own earthy side that way? I mean, in a... No?
Earthy jokes, no. He knew quite a lot of jokes, but no earthy.
Uh-huh.
It's possible that he spoke with Miss Bailey. He spoke in English,
Uh-huh.
and it was difficult for us to understand the whole lot. But no, I wouldn't say so.
Uh-huh. Are you saying that in a way that's something missing or not? I'm not sure I understand you. Do you think he could have been more down to earth with you?
No, I wouldn't.
Than he was?
No, we respected that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We knew he was. He had his work. He worked hard. He had to write, and he was over 70. He was quite old, and he was a gentleman, and so we respected that, and we were astonished that he knew us and that he was interested in us. That's what I told before. That he was listening when we had a problem. And I know some of us went to him to discuss his problems. And I think when he would have been alive, I would have talked to him or discussed my problems about my profession. No, I think that's... but it's funny that he didn't say anything. He didn't say anything about sexuality in his family. That was taboo. No, I think it was taboo. The other possibility is that he hadn't had the time to talk about it, but I don't think that.
You probably have so many stories from your experiences. You had told us earlier a story of sailing with him and how he kind of rejoiced in being the elder. Can you?
Yeah, that was when we every Easter we young people sailed to Bollingen from Kusnacht with a little sailing boat with red sails. And then once we met someone with a fast sailing boat coming up to us, and then he asked us if that is the sailing ship from our from Niehus-Jung, and then we said yes, and then he told us that he had a funny story which he must tell us, that he met this boat coming from the wrong side to him, and then he wanted to sail on, but he couldn't because it would crash. So he shouted to the other boat, "Now I'm in the right. I may I can keep this way." And my grandfather shouted back, "You're in the right, that's right, but I'm the older." And so he passed.
So your grandfather passed.
Yeah. And another story is that he was practically, you can see that in his stones, and his the building, the tower, he built it himself, the first one. And so he was quite a good sailing man, or sailor.
Sailor.
And in the older days, we children could sail. And then once there was one cousin of mine coming up to Bollingen, and then he wanted to fix the ship there. And then my grandfather came. We were there, standing there, looking how he did it. And then my grandfather gave order, now take the ship in this direction, and then throw the anchor on the left side, or I don't know, in this direction. And then my cousin is not so practically. And then the ship was in 90 degrees in the other direction, and then he took the anchor and threw it in another direction. And then my grandfather got furious as he could get. That was a point we respected him too, because one did not know when he was blowing up.
Uh-huh.
And he was furious and told him, now I told you to do that so, and not to do that so, and now you have done it so, and now take the anchor back, take it up again, and now put the ship in this direction, I told you. And then my cousin did it, took the anchor up, and then turned the ship, but now in 180 degrees false. And then he took the anchor, threw it again in the wrong direction. And then my grandfather shook his head and said, "Oh no, now I can't look further on." And turned and went back. And then that was the point that I thought, now he's old. Because I think some years before he would have been there until the anchor would have been at the place he wanted, and the ship would have been there as he wanted.
So he could blow up. Huh?
Yeah.
He had a temper.
Yeah. He had.
Yeah. I've heard about his laughter, how it sometimes was very deep
Loud,
and
yeah.
loud. Uh-huh. So I suppose when he got angry, he could get loud and
Yeah, he
scary
could, yeah.
a little bit. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he could. And what do you call that? Fluchen. I don't know when you say terrible words. Horrible curse. I don't know.
Yeah. Swear.
Swear, yeah.
Uh-huh.
The Swiss people can swear.
Uh-huh.
And so he could. No, he could quite good, and in a loud voice. And, yeah, it's the same. When he was laughing, then the tower was shuddering. No, he was a gourmet. He did like to eat.
Mm-hmm.
He loved onion pastry. And then when he was in Bollingen, he had there was a what do you call that, a little office where they
Study?
no, where can you buy these pastries?
At
What
a
do you call it?
bakery?
Yeah, the bakery.
Yeah.
Bakery.
Uh-huh.
And then he had that onion pastry, and he wanted to eat it, and these onions weren't ready. They were fresh.
Uh-huh.
And he took a bit and out it went. And then he took that pastry, went on to his ship, went to Schmerikron with the ship, went in that bakery with that pastry, made it on the table and said, now eat that yourself. He didn't use eat it, but he said the other word, throw it in, turn, and away he was. And but afterwards he had a diabetes, and he was extremely hard to himself. He was nearly fat, you can say. He was round. I think with about 60 he had the diabetes, and he was quite round. He was great, and that was extraordinary. He took a diet and lost, I think, about 20 kilos. And when we went out with Fowler McCormick, then he ordered his diet, and he ate nothing more than what he was allowed to. Mm-hmm. And when you see other people with diabetes, what they eat, and it's hard to have a diet like that. But
Mm-hmm.
His will was quite strong. When he wanted to read something. And so the same when he had the first stroke in 1961, he couldn't write, he couldn't move his right hand. He got himself to sign again, that he could sign the last written paper he had to, and then then he lost conscience and died. But he knew that he must sign these papers, and so he got to that. And I think it was only the signature he could write, but that he could.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
At the end of his life, at the very end, apparently he had some visions. Do you know that story at all?
I don't know it exactly. I know that he had some visions. I had read that in the red book. He had some visions where he had a dream, and then he wrote about that. He analyzed it and wrote about it. That would be his end. And on the other side, that it could show a life after our life, but as I know, I'm not quite sure if that is so. That he wrote that it's for us not, that no human being can say exactly if there is any life or not. And I think that was a point he was. That was annoying him, that he couldn't say that, and that's what I remember. But I'm not quite sure if it's like that or if I did put something in it.
What about the visions of the future of the Earth? I mean, I had heard that perhaps there was also the idea that he had some sense about the whether or not we would survive, the planet would survive.
Yeah, he told something about that, but I don't know if that was the surviving of the Earth. He told us that there was a changing from the waterman into the waterman, from the I don't know,
from Pisces into Aquarius.
Into the waterman, and that would be a changing from the world, that our technology wouldn't be so hard, wouldn't be so dominant, that would be go back and change to another interest of human being, perhaps to be a bit more human.
So that the technology and the machine age would kind of recede, and we would no longer be just the slaves of machines,
exactly.
but become, I see,
slaves of the computer.
I see.
That's what he said. That what I remember. And what,
was your mother still living when he died in 1961?
Yeah, she died 65, but she was ill in this time, and the afternoon he died, she was there all the time, and the afternoon he died, I think she had to go to Zurich to the doctor, and then someone says, now that's naturally that he is gone because she was away, she let him go. She didn't took him back, but that's mythic.
As if her presence was keeping him alive a little bit.
Yeah.
So they were very close, it seems.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. She was the first who took who worked on the collected works. With Frau Hurwitz, they began with that, and so I think she was close to him, and I think the other daughters hadn't such an interest for his work as she had. They came now with astrology, or with that dancing and moving analytic psychology.
Your mother was Marianne Niehus?
Yeah.
I see that you have the collected works of Freud as well as the collected works of your grandfather. How do you take to Freudian theory and his work? Are you interested in it?
Yeah, I'd say without Freud, Freud was a Wegbereiter. He made the path for my grandfather.
Pathfinder.
Yeah. And in some ways, and I think without Freud, my grandfather, I don't know, I can't say that.
But it's your own view. Huh?
It's my view. And I have my opinion with the anima, I said before. And I think so I may have my opinion with Freud. And I'm not a Jungian like that.
With the tunnel vision, just for him.
Yeah. Hope. And that's my opinion.
That's what we want. Very good. Your son would like to ask you some questions, and I think we'll do some filming.
Komm, Matthias, jetzt kannst du kommen. Matthias, komm schnell.
Now he leaves.
Komm schnell.
Good. Hello.
Weißt du gemacht?
Huh?
Hast du jetzt musst du mal dort vorne schauen. Schau mal. Da kannst du mir etwas sagen. Was hast du im Zimmer gemacht?
Nichts.
Nichts. Ja, und was hast du bis jetzt alles gemacht?
Ich habe oben gesessen.
Und zugeschaut? Und beibambelt?
Weiß nicht.
It's not a great talk we can deliver, gell?
Good picture.
Ja. Yeah. No, I hope I could give a view.
Very satisfied with, very good picture. How do you feel about the future of the planet yourself? Let's go back to your opinions. Are you optimistic that we can make it through the critical time we seem to be in? I mean political and economic and everything.
Oh, that's difficult to say.
Yeah.
I'm not the futurologue.
Yeah,
And I take it as it comes.
Yeah.
The same as you asked me before with the works of my grandfather, if they are spreading around the world. Perhaps one explanation is that you are here from America. And I think that would be enough. And if it is something, it goes around the world. And if it's nothing, it will go into the sand and loosen. But was.